I'm going to talk about an interview I had to work for a company called Medical Sickness Society. Uh, my interview was to be held in the Commercial Road here in Swindon. And of course, like anybody attending an interview, I was a little bit nervous, a little bit excited. Anyway, I was met at the door by the area manager, a charming man called Mr. Patrick Harris Deans. He introduced himself and I said hello, and he told me there would be two other men interviewing me, a Mr. Gray and a Mr. Buck. Anyway, he took me into this room and I sat down one side of the table, and on the other side of the table there were three men. Anyway, they started, as they do, asking general questions. Mr. Patrick Harris Deans, let's call him Patrick, was asking the first few questions. And then he said, and now I'm going to pass it to Mr. Buck. Well, of course, I grinned, didn't I? Couldn't help it. Anyway, Mr. Buck was very pleasant, very charming man as well. They were all lovely, really, very easy to talk to. Anyway, he said to me, I see from your CV that you worked on a paper in Reading. And I said, yes, that's right, I did. I worked in the advertising department for the Reading Evening Post. I went there a week after it opened, so it was very new. He said, did you know a gentleman called Derek Winter? I said, well, yes, actually, I did. I knew him quite well. When he came to work for the company, he was above me, but he used to drive through Henley-on-Thames where I lived, and he very kindly used to pick me up and give me a lift to work every day. Now, this was great for me because I was pregnant, and before then I'd been going in on the bus, so being given a lift every day was wonderful news. I said, yes. He said, well, Derek was my best man at my wedding. So it was lucky I told the truth on my CV, wasn't it? Anyway, I had a very good interview. I got the job and I worked there for several years and I thoroughly enjoyed all my time there. It was a very lively office full of very bright, quick-witted young people, and we processed an enormous amount of work. What we were actually doing was processing applications for permanent health insurance. That was for people who wanted to protect their income if they didn't have anything provided by the company they worked for, or if they were self-employed. And then if they were ill, could be guaranteed they'd have a living income, well, up until they retired, actually. It was fantastic. Anyway, so that's that's my experience of an interview with a sort of slight twist. I've had other interviews that were interesting. I went to work for the Bank of England when I was 19, 20, and I had this amazing interview when there's a massive board of people to interview me. The chairman of the Bank of England at the time was a gentleman called L.K. O'Brien, and he was in the chair, and on either side of him were three other people. So altogether, there were 7 people interviewing me. And I was ushered into this room, walked across a very large expanse of carpet and sat in a chair directly opposite them. They asked me all sorts of questions, and again, it went quite well, and I was lucky, I got the job. But probably the most interesting interview I had of all, ever, was when I applied to go to Leeds University. I wanted to read social sciences, and I was invited into the room, and the room was full of chairs, high chairs, low chairs, comfy chairs, squashy chairs, and again, a panel of people, and they were sitting in front of a window. So I went and chose a chair right in the middle, right in front of them. I sat in the chair and I immediately sank because it was a very squashy chair. So I'm now sitting down there looking up at this panel of people. I remember it well because one of them asked me whether I liked poetry, and I decided that it was easier to say yes than no. This was a mistake on my part because I said Yes, I did like poetry. Name me one poet that you liked. I thought, well, it better be one I knew well. So I said Wordsworth. And then he said, well, why do you like Wordsworth's poetry? And I said, well, I liked it because I happen to know the Lake District rather well, and I thought, anyway, he stopped me and he said, that is a terrible reason for liking poetry. I said, well, it's my reason. You asked me why I liked it, and I told you. Anyway, I did get offered a place too. That's it for today.